3 women, 6 kids, 2 dogs, and a cat. A short story by Tanya Stingley. All rights reserved. This is my intellectual property. It may not be shared or copied by any other person. Prologue. Forever is not always forever. Summer has long passed. The leaves are beginning to show the vivid colors of autumn. The brisk, fresh air tells the story of the changing of the seasons and the evolving of my spirit. The story begins 1 year ago, tied in a love, lust, passion-fed fear of losing her cycle. The object of my undying affection was cheating on me, and she knew that I knew. My ego told me to run away from her, but my heart held me bound, eternally rooted to her like crazy glue. How could I be so stupid, so foolish, to actually think that she loved me and only me? Worse than that, I knew the other woman, and I knew that she was in love with her. What happened that 4th of October will stay etched in my mind for the rest of my life. Chapter 1, The Beginning. Tuesday morning, October 4th, 2002. The day began just as any other. Kimberly was going en route, doing her secondary job filling toy machines. This was perfect, because we'd been fighting and had broken up and had just barely got back together. This, I thought, was the perfect opportunity to send some serious quality time with her. You know, make crazy love somewhere along the way, in a grove of trees or behind one of the local businesses like we had done before. Kim was my angel. A tiny Mexican woman of 36, fair-skinned with piercing, light brown eyes, a cherubic face, and closely cropped dark brown hair, forever pulled into a Denver Broncos ball cap. Anyway, right before we were to leave, Tammy screeches up in her baby blue Cadillac Coupe de Ville, dressed as usual in blue jeans, worn just a little too tight, a t-shirt with the cafe logo on it stretched to near bursting from her enormous breasts. A typical Chicana she was, with thick, curly, jet black hair and those eyes, those flaming green eyes. Yes, she was beautiful, and I hated her. And now, here she is, screaming at Kim, my woman, while I am sitting right there, totally freaked out. I know she didn't just drive up here and disrespect her. Kim is mine, my mind screamed as my head is spinning, shouting, pleading, but my mouth doesn't move. There I am, sitting silently like a frightened child, my eyes wide in disbelief. My woman is apologizing to her. I feel dizzy. I can't believe this is happening. Oh, no, you don't. Kim is mine, I shout, finally finding my voice. But it was too late for that. Kim was chasing Tammy. Worse than that, Kim was crying and becoming completely hysterical. So I did the only thing any self-respecting woman would do. I played my trump card. I told her, if you love her, you better go after her. It's obvious you don't love me. Slamming the door of the pickup as I jumped out and dropped defeated into my own car. Now I'm crying. I watch as my lover, my wife, gets back into the pickup to chase after that Jezebel. That homewrecker, that crazy woman who is driving like a maniac out of the parking lot with my girlfriend, my woman, in hot pursuit. Well, I thought, I'm not going to sit here looking like a fool. I'm getting the hell out of this town. going as far as a quarter tank of gas and a $10 bill will get me. Racing through the narrow streets of the small town, I headed west towards Interstate 40. My heart is racing, ready to explode in my chest. I don't need her, I scream. I can do fine by myself. Determined not to let her win, not to let her break me again, I roll the window all the way down and punch the accelerator, pop in a CD and crank the volume all the way up. Determined to let the wind and music wash me clean of the images burned in my mind, to help me cope with what had just happened. But I can't breathe. The air feels thick and heavy. I look in the rearview mirror into my own eyes, those soft, brown, almond-shaped eyes that are now red and swollen from crying. My long, dark, braided hair blowing wildly in the wind. My heart-shaped face streaked with hot, stinging tears. And my full, pouting lips trembling from pain and anger. I curse her. Then I see it. Lying there on the back seat is Kim's money box. She needs it for the route. Not only does it have all the money collecting bags in it, but it has also all of the cheap costume jewelry needed for filling some of the machines. What do I do? Damn her, I yell as I grip and shake the steering wheel violently, as if I was wringing someone's neck. I sure as hell don't want to go back there and see Kim, see her groveling at that bitch's feet, begging for her forgiveness when it is me she should be begging. Me, the dumbass who always takes her back. I can't keep going. I can't just leave her stuck like that. My conscience won't allow it. I have to give her what she needs so that she can do her job. Angrily, I pull off the next exit and turn back towards my hometown. Chapter 2, Holbrook. Holbrook is one of those little dirt towns that people try to dress up by calling a main street of America town. Translated, that means get out while you still have hope. Not that it's a bad town, just one that has failed its residents miserably. No industry, no good paying jobs, not even a theater to break the monotony. Just flea bag motels displaying signs to prove that they are American owned, as if their dilapidated doors and lice-infested beds are somehow better than those businesses owned by non-Americans, and the greasy spoons that offer little more than day-old slop. Holbrook is a whistle stop in the middle of nowhere, brimming with an overabundance of drunks and druggies passed out on the sidewalks or hanging out in the disproportionate number of bars and dope houses. A place where everyone seems to be busy doing a whole lot of nothing all of the time. Kimberly. Kim had always been very ambitious. She had been on her own since she was 17 when she moved to Phoenix the day after graduating high school. And then she became one of the youngest managers in a well-known restaurant chain. She'd always seemed to have good business sense. Kim had lived in Phoenix with her former lover for more than 15 years before returning to Holbrook, coming back only to help her parents run the family business, the cafe. The cafe. Opening in the 1940s by her maternal grandparents, the cafe was world-renowned, a long-standing landmark that once dotted the now infamous Route 66. The cafe catered mainly to tourists and local Native Americans who regularly patronized the cafe when coming into town to grocery shop before returning to the reservation. The cafe served what most of the local eateries sold, Mexican and American cuisine. The chili, however, has been said to be some of the best in the Southwest. And so it begins. I met Kimberly in May of 1998 at the Winner's Circle, a local bar in Holbrook, where she was competing in a Memorial Day pool tournament with her older brother. I was there with Lori, a longtime friend of mine and former love interest, who at that point had shown no romantic feelings for me. Lori introduced Kimberly to me, stating that they were cousins. I was taken with Kim instantly. She was beautiful, and her hair fell over her petite shoulders in ringlets. Her eyes sparkled every time she smiled, and I think I fell in love with her before I even knew her name. I knew I loved her when I heard her voice. I never in my life had met a more confident, appealing woman. I was nervous, trembling even, and I couldn't stop looking at her, watching her move competently around the pool tables, watching her play as if she was born with a cue in her hands. Sent chills through me. Before the night was over, Kim sauntered over to me and said that she had lost her last match because she could not keep her eyes off of me. I almost exploded. What was she making advances to me? Was she trying to pick me up? There she was, sitting on my lap, whispering lurid things into my ear. I had no idea what to do, and so I panicked. I jumped out of my chair, held her at arm's length, kissed her on her forehead, and then ran out of the bar, but not before promising to call her later that week. Somehow, we got together and fell in love. And we were happy together for almost 5 years before disaster struck in the form of Tammy. Chapter 3, Day of Reckoning. Pulling off the interstate, the sign reads, "Welcome to Holbrook." I cringe at what I know has to be done. Slowly I drive through town, looking down the side streets, scanning the grocery store parking lots, looking for Kim. She could be anywhere, and Tammy would most likely be there as well. Not seeing her anywhere downtown, I drive towards Kim's house, and just as I make the turn onto her street, I see her approaching the corner. I pulled to the other side of the road and got out of my car. Kim flipped a U-turn and pulled up beside me. Dutifully, I retrieved her belongings from the back seat and handed them to her. Not wanting to engage in any unnecessary conversation, I tell her that I was headed out of town when I realized I had her things in my car. I turn away from her and start to get back into my car when she says, "Wait, please come and talk to me." "Why? Where's Tammy?" I asked. "Did she leave you too?" She surprised me when she answered, "Yes." Feeling almost sorry for her, I agreed to talk. But that was it. Back at Kim's house, she began by saying that she was sorry, that she had been seeing both of us, not because she had wanted to hurt us, because she loved the both of us. Somehow deep in my soul, I believed her. She said that she had to go en route and asked if I would ride along with her so that we could talk about things on the way. I agreed, and I left my car parked in front of her house. It took about an hour and a half to get to Sholo, an hour to service the machines, and then another hour and a half to drive back to Holbrook. We talked all the way. I yelled and screamed, and we both cried. We stopped for lunch at a pizzeria in Sholo, and as I was sitting there looking into her eyes and hearing her cry, I knew I would not be able to just give her up. No matter how much it hurt, I still wanted to be with her. I forgave her for everything and told her that I still loved her. Little did I know I would be bound by those words. Tammy. Tammy was a tough woman who had led an equally hard life. Incredibly sexy, she had a way of seducing people with the bat of her eyes, and she was confident in her abilities to do so. She was very voluptuous. Her breasts were her crowning glory, second only to her eyes, the kind of deep green that makes one imagine the ocean at twilight. It was no wonder Kim had fallen for her the way she did. No man, woman, or beast could look at this woman and not be totally taken by her. She had a panther-like sway when she walked. Tammy took pride in the fact that once she was an exotic dancer, and she had the moves to prove it. It was early evening that October 4th. Kim and I had just returned from the route. Kim was feeling the stress of all that had transpired that day and laid down in her bed, sick with an upset stomach and headache. I sat in her living room, flipping through channels and drinking beer, when who should be standing in the doorway? No other than Tammy herself. Tired of fighting, I invited her in and offered her a beer. She gladly accepted and sat down on a chair across from me. Let the games begin. I had no idea of what was going to happen next or how things would end. I only knew that I was tired of fighting. Tammy must have read my mind because the first thing out of her mouth was prolific. She said, "I'm not willing to give Kim up, and you're not willing to give her up either. So, why don't we just share her?" My mind swirled. I must have looked at her like she was an alien. "What?" I asked, not sure if I'd heard her right. She repeated herself. "Share her." I laughed again and said, "And just how would that work?" We would end up fighting even more out of jealousy and pettiness. Hell, we would even wind up probably trying to kill each other or killing Kim. "No, we wouldn't," she answered. "We would make rules." I laughed again. It was ridiculous, right? It seems that talking with your girlfriend's girlfriends makes for thirsty work, and we were out of beer. I asked Tammy if she wanted to ride with me to the store. I figured if nothing else, it would be the most interesting conversation I ever had. She said she wanted to go. So we hopped in my car and away we went. On the way to the store, Tammy broke it down. And what she said made sense to me, sort of. She said that we would not have to be jealous of each other anymore because we would know where Kim was, who she was with, and that neither one of us would have reason to be suspicious of the other. Well, that sounded good to me. No more drama? It made perfect sense. I was in. I agreed to do the most outrageous thing I'd ever done in my life. I was going to share my life and my bed with two women. One that I loved and one that I didn't even know. Boy, was I in for a rude awakening. Telling Kim what we had decided to do with her turned out to be kind of fun. She was sure we were plotting to kill her. We promised that we wouldn't. At least not yet. Chapter 4. Round 1. It's funny how people are. One day you're miserable and confused, and the next you're even more confused, but too dumb to know whether to be happy or afraid. I should have been afraid. The first night was, in a word, strangely exciting. Everything was so awkward. Three hot, sweaty female bodies tangled in a passion-fed love-in, doing things none of us had ever imagined doing. Now, I'm not complaining, mind you, at least not yet. That first session, as they came to be known, was more erotic than anything I had ever experienced in my entire life. I found I could rationalize this perverse behavior by telling myself, it's all right. It's like having an affair with permission. And yes, in the beginning it was. Now remember, Kim had been sleeping with Tammy, so I, in a sense, was the outsider. What had started with Tammy and I hating each other turned into an instant lust. Since she and I had never been together in the biblical sense, we were like animals in heat, and we wanted each other bad. We both had already been with Kim, so we knew what making love with her was like, but we didn't know each other, and we were more than ready to find out. Hitting below the belt. During the first few days of this new and exciting romance, the three of us would frequently make love. The rules up to this point were being made up as we went along. At first, everything was fine. I did get a little jealous when Kim was primary with Tammy. That means Kim was giving and Tammy was receiving, and me watching. But found that we all felt the same way when we were not actively participating. Tammy and I discussed our feelings moment to moment. I think we both knew that it was going to be up to us to make this thing work. But we had no idea of just how much work this was going to take. Meanwhile, the lust factor between Tammy and I had grown into an inferno, both of us preparing to spontaneously combust if we didn't get together soon. We had not made any rules about the two of us being together without the third. And one day, it just so happened that the two of us were alone and extremely aroused. One touch led to another, and we were soon drowning in a sea of erotic pleasure, too explicit to put into words. We were immersed in each other, completely oblivious to anything going on around us. I happened to open my eyes only to see Kim standing beside the bed with an expression on her face that was not exactly happy. And to make matters worse, I was at the peak of sexual gratification, unable to speak or stop what was happening. As wave after wave of carnal ecstasy consumed me, I lost control and in a convulsionary motion broke the window with my head before collapsing, satiated, onto the bed. Round 2. Kim just stood there, never saying a word. Tammy sat up and smiled at me, still unaware of Kim's presence. When she looked to see what I was staring at, and it was then that she saw her, my stomach was in knots. Suddenly I felt ill. But I thought, hey, if this was how it's going to be from now on, then why should I feel so guilty? Why did I feel like I had just been caught cheating? I couldn't stop staring at her. I couldn't break eye contact. I was embarrassed and ashamed. Then Tammy broke the silence. She just smiled and said, "Hi, babe." I hurried to put my clothes back on while Tammy laid back on the bed naked and brazenly unashamed. I asked Kim if she was angry about what she had just seen. Kim answered with an unconvincing no, but her eyes told a much different story. Tammy was having a naturally Tammy, having a naturally hypnotic nature, coaxed Kim onto the bed, and Tammy and I began to lavish her with kisses, and together we made love to her. Kim later insisted that she was okay with us getting to know each other better. She even said that she had enjoyed watching, but deep inside, I'm shaken. I can't explain it, but I feel like I just seduced Kim's girlfriend and got caught in the act. That day effectively became the beginning of the end. Even though Kim said that she was all for Tammy and I getting together, we didn't wade into the river of lust together alone again for many months. Chapter 5. Happy, happy birthday, baby. Kim's birthday was coming, and Tammy and I wanted to make it a memorable occasion for her. And what better way to celebrate than with an all-expense-paid vacation to a casino, a lavish king suite, and all the love-making she could handle, complete with a personalized strip show that Tammy and I choreographed especially for her. Kim's birthday fell on a Sunday, and that was perfect. The cafe was closed, and the Denver Broncos were playing a televised game. We left Holbrook early, intent on reaching the casino in time to watch the second half of the football game. We arrived just in time for the fourth quarter, and as luck would have it, the Broncos won, making the beginning of a fabulous getaway. Round 3. That night was magical. Tammy and I danced seductively together for Kim, and not wanting her to miss any part of the show, we tied her hands with silk scarves to an overly padded wooden chair set in the middle of the room. Our goal was to get her more worked up than she had ever been, and then when she could take no more, we would move her to the bedroom, retie her hands and feet to the bed, and ravage her for hours. All that we planned for came to pass, and sometime in the wee hours of the morning, we collapsed in each other's arms, happy and satisfied. For 2 glorious nights we stayed at the casino hotel, making love, gambling a little, and having more fun than we ever knew we could. All too soon, it was time to leave, and so we took lots of pictures to forever record our first journey into public as a threesome. Place your bets. When we returned to town on Wednesday, there was a buzz at the cafe. Everyone there knew we had gone to the casino together, and some people knew that we were a trio, but most people were just putting two and one together and coming up confused. Holbrook is a small town, so when something happens out of the ordinary, everyone knows within the hour. Kim, Tammy, and I were sitting at one of the back tables in the cafe having breakfast when 2 local men came in and sat near our table. Since they were regulars, we really didn't pay them much attention. We just went about what we were doing. Soon, other people came in who very rarely came in, if at all, to the cafe. It wasn't until there were about 10 or so people in the cafe that we noticed they were all watching us with sly smiles on their faces. And to top it off, they were all men. Shortly after that, we learned that several people in town were making bets as to how long the 3 of us would be together. The bets were from 1 week to 1 month. I'm not sure how much money was involved, but Tammy was determined to make sure they all lost, and she convinced Kim and me that we had to outlast the longest bet as not to become the joke of Holbrook, even though we already were. and would continue to be, whether we made the time limit or not. The not so happy birthday. Tammy's birthday was coming fast, and she wanted one like Kim's. The problem was that I was scheduled to have minor outpatient surgery on her birthday, but not wanting to let her down, I rented a king suite at a casino in Lakeside, which was close to the hospital. Figuring that we could have fun the night before my surgery and that Kim and Tammy could gamble while I recuperated in the room afterwards. I really don't know what happened to change my plans. The night before surgery, we all went out and had dinner. Then we went back to the room to give Tammy her presents, and afterwards, Kim and I began making love to Tammy. All seemed to be going well until that little jealousy monster popped its ugly little head up again. This time it was nasty. Kim was primary, as usual. I was watching on the sidelines. I tried to squeeze in from time to time. I tried to squeeze in to Kim, and she pushed me away. My feelings were hurt, and I began to pout and stopped participating. Tammy either sensed the tension between Kim and I, or had seen what had happened. Anyway, the festivities came to a screeching halt, and Tammy was pissed. The morning after. The next morning, I got up to get ready to go to the hospital. It was very early, and I tried to wake the girls up so that they could also get ready. It was then that the true drama began. Tammy said, "I'm not going. I'm going home, even if I have to walk." Kim and I looked at each other and had no clue why she was behaving this way. I am beginning to panic because I have to be at the hospital in less than an hour, and it's a 20-minute drive to get there. But before either of us could protest, Tammy was up, dressed, and out the door. Kim, in true Kim fashion, was right behind her, and I was in tears. "Damn! Why does this kind of shit always happen to me?" I screamed. Chapter 6. Winner by Technical Knockout. As quickly as Kim and Tammy had so dramatically exited the room, they were now back. Tammy was still upset, but at least she was willing to tell us why she was so mad. She said she was angry about how Kim and I were acting towards each other. Kim and I assured her that we were okay, that we loved each other, and that we were so sorry for upsetting her. Only then did everything seem to get back on track. And now that everyone was finally ready to go, I had only 30 minutes to get to the hospital. Welcoming the fact that I was driving, we were soon on our way. The drive seemed to do us all a lot of good. I was nervous about my operation, and the girls seemed equally concerned. But once we got there and I was checked in, we all seemed to relax a little bit. So much so that Tammy began flashing those extra large orbs of hers at us. She was teasing us unmercifully. She unzipped her shirt halfway and began parading up and down the hospital corridor. She even flashed my doctor. By the time the orderlies came for me, I was almost in tears from laughing so hard. The operation went off without a hitch, and as planned, I was released as soon as the effects of the anesthesia had worn off sufficiently. Kim drove us back to the casino and put me to bed. They kissed me and left to spend some time gambling. I was still pretty heavily sedated when Kim back into the room and asked if Tammy had been there. I sat up confused. "I thought she was with you," I said. "She took off again. She's mad at me," Kim said. "Well, let's find her," I said. "You go in the car in case she's trying to walk home, and I'll go look around the casino." Kim told me to get back in bed, that she would find her. Knowing that she wouldn't leave unless I agreed, I got back into bed, tossed her my car keys, and as soon as she was out of the door, I carefully got out of bed, dressed myself, and went to search the casino for Tammy. I cannot begin to tell you the pain that I was in. Every step, every twist sent a knife-like slashing pain through my belly. But I was bound and determined to find Tammy, if she was still in the casino. As luck would have it, and thank God luck was on my side, that night I found her rather quickly. She was hiding in the arcade. I went in and sat down next to her and asked her what was the matter. Of course she didn't answer me, so I sat there staring at her, pleading with her to tell me what was wrong. She still refused to speak. So after a half hour of cajoling, I walked out on her, frustrated that she didn't even care that I was in pain, that I was risking breaking my stitches to chase after her. And so I went to the casino bar, and there I sat for an hour and a half until I was completely drunk and didn't give a damn anymore. Chapter 7. Time marches on. Somehow, as drunk as I was, I made my way back to the hotel room. Kim was there, and Tammy wasn't. Totally exasperated with Tammy at this point, I told Kim where I'd last saw her, and not caring whether she found her or not, I undressed and went to bed. Sometime during the night, the two of them returned. Upon waking the next morning, I knew that I'd had enough. I was tired of fighting, and I wanted to end the charade. Then and there, how much crap were we going to have to put up with? I was not happy, and there was no light at the end of the tunnel, at least not that I could see. But I held my tongue and didn't say a word. I was happy to be going home. Thank God, we didn't have to live together. Yet. It's strange. It's a strange thing, you know. Many people fantasize about having two lovers at the same time, and it sounds exciting. But reality is never what the fantasy wants it to be. Happy holidays. Family matters. Thanksgiving is a week away. It was our first real holiday together, a time when most families make plans to congregate. Well, our family unit was not anywhere close to normal, and now that the entire town and much of the state knew about our twisted relationship and our total disregard of what is considered socially acceptable, and the fact that we had children witnessing this travesty, 6 children to be exact, was too much for our families and some of our friends to handle. And so to compensate, we made plans to have our first Thanksgiving meal together, and then to split it up and separately attend our families' gatherings. It was a pretty simple plan, and thankfully it worked out. I know you're thinking, 6 kids. Yep. And we had been, and we had between 3 of us, 3 boys, 3 girls, 2 dogs, and a cat. We were the friggin' Brady Bunch. Now, before you start guessing, Kim didn't have any children. One of the dogs was hers, and as far as I know, there's only been one man on the planet to ever sample her woman fruit. However, Tammy and I had both been married twice before. In fact, Tammy was and still is married. 3 of the kids are hers. The other 3 are mine. The kids were all very aware of what was going on. In fact, we sat them down and told them everything when we began seeing each other. The kids thought the same ignorant way we did. Wow, this ought to be fun. 3 moms equals 3 times the presents and 3 times the love. That was true. I loved Tammy's kids as much as she loved mine. All seemed right with our world. And if you believe that, I've got prime Arizona oceanfront property that I want to sell to you. Chapter 8. Christmas is coming. A few weeks after my operation, it was determined that I would have to have a hysterectomy. The date, December 14th, exactly 11 days before Christmas. We didn't have any quality time together before. We sure would now. I would have to be hospitalized for 5 days and would be off of work for a minimum of 6 weeks after that. This is where my life began to get a little shaky and the love tests began. One of the major things agreed upon when Kim and I had been together, just the two of us, was that no matter what, any time I was in the hospital, which was often, Kim promised to always be there with me, no matter what, period. This is when Tammy and I began fighting each other almost daily. The fights were insignificant in theory, but the underlying reasons were centered on Kim and who she was more in love with. I thought she loved Tammy, and Tammy thought she loved me. The insecurities began mounting on both of our parts and dogged our every waking moment. Tammy and I saw each other as enemies now. We didn't make love like we had in the beginning. In fact, we had made love only twice since Tammy's birthday, 1 full month ago. We had been together for more than 3 months now, and we were bent on outlasting everyone's prediction. Failure was not an option, and personal happiness wasn't a consideration either. We had to prove to them, to whom I still don't know who they are, that we could make this situation work, and that outwardly we were all in love and that everything was just fine. I was admitted into the hospital on December 16th. My operation was scheduled around noon. The girls stayed for the operation, but left as soon as I was put into my room. They only came to visit me once in the 5 days I was there. And when I was released, I stayed at my house alone. Neither of them stayed to help me at all. I was miserable, but more than that, I was too proud to beg either of them for any type of help. If they loved me, then they would have been there for me without me ever having to ask. Wouldn't they? Chapter 9. Christmas. Christmas was upon us. The children were excited that we would spend the holidays together. The girls came and got me on Christmas Eve, and I was to stay with them for a few days. And since I was unable to drive for another 2 weeks, I was at their mercy in regards to going anywhere or doing anything. Kim did try to help me some, but it seemed that Tammy was controlling her every move, at least when it came to me. On Christmas Eve night, we began exchanging gifts. Tammy and I had obviously tried to outdo each other with the gifts that we bought for Kimberly, and Kim and I had tried to outdo each other with the things we bought for Tammy. So as it would happen, Kim and Tammy got fabulous presents, and I got the shaft. God, it sucked. It sucked to be me. The children were spoiled rotten with presents, and they were completely unconcerned with the drama we so-called adults were having, and had themselves a wonderful Christmas anyway. I returned to my house 2 days after Christmas with my Christmas booty in tow. happy to be in my own space once more. Happy New Year. New Year's Eve was interesting. I was at home and Kim came by after work and asked if I wanted to go up to Tammy's with her. I said, no, I'm not feeling up to it. What I didn't tell her was that I wanted to be alone with her. But because I knew it wouldn't happen, I didn't even bother asking. I did tell her that if I felt better later, I would probably go out. Kim didn't seem to mind and left as quickly as she had come. Anxious to begin her New Year festivities with Tammy. Shortly after Kim had left, I decided that I would not stay home feeling sorry for myself. I was going to go out, and I was going to have fun, even if it killed me. So at approximately 10:30 p.m., I got out of bed, dressed in my sexiest outfit, and walked to the Corral, a small local bar that catered to the hip-hop crowd. As soon as I walked in, I was greeted by a multitude of friends and ushered to a seat near the dance floor. All night I laughed, danced, and drank with people that honestly gave a damn about me, my friends. It was then that I realized how pitiful my life had become. The following day, the girls came to visit. I told them how I had spent my New Year's Eve, and true to form, they didn't care. Not at all. What was I expecting? For them to get angry? They could have come to my house to be with me. Why should I always have to go to them? More and more, I was slipping into depression. I had not one but 2 girlfriends, and I was lonelier than I had ever been in my entire life. They say how you bring in the new year is how you're destined to spend it. I was alone. Enough said. Moving in. Somewhere near the middle of January, Kim and Tammy shocked me when they asked me to come and live with them. They said that we could build a stronger relationship if we were all in the same house. Still wanting to believe that we could truly love each other, I agreed and moved with my youngest child to Tammy's house. My oldest had returned to college, and my middle child was now living with his father. Moving in with Tammy was different from me. I had never moved in with anyone before, but the living arrangements were tolerable, and I thought that maybe we could make this work somehow and actually become some type of a family. In the beginning, it seemed that it was working out. We were getting along better than we had in months, but the love-making was still non-existent, a fact that I was constantly bringing to their attention, because when I'm overly horny, I tend to become angry. And you won't like me when I'm angry. Chapter 10. Let's make a deal. I am a very sexual person by nature. And masturbation, as satisfying as that can be, was not an option for me when I had 2 perfectly healthy, very sexy women sharing a bed with me night after night. I tried everything I knew to get the love-making started again. But as it were, Kim, as much as I wanted her, never seemed interested in sex anymore. And Tammy only wanted it when it benefited her. I found the latter to be true when Tammy's landlord offered to sell her the property she was living on next to nothing. The problem was that Tammy had no credit. That Kim and Tammy had no credit. I was the only one who had any chance of getting a loan. And so Tammy asked me to apply for a loan so that we would have something to leave our children. At first I hesitated, but as soon as I agreed to apply for the loan, Tammy's legs parted like the Red Sea. The more I pursued the loan, the more action I got. Hell, I ain't no dummy. I knew the chances of actually getting the loan were slim, mainly because I had overextended my credit financing Kim and Tammy's birthday getaways and Christmas. But I aimed to play along until the rejection letters started. Every time Tammy and I discussed buying the property, I got laid. So you know I was always trying to talk about it. My birthday. It is now March. We've cleared the 6-month hurdle, and my birthday is coming. The girls decided that I would also have a casino getaway, and that mine would be the grandest of all. I guess I should have been flattered, but I really didn't want to go away for my birthday. I just wanted a simple day, dinner and drinks, no fuss, no frills. The girls, however, had their own agenda. They planned a trip to Laughlin, Nevada, and as much as I protested against it, I didn't have a chance but to go. Deep inside, I knew this was probably going to be the last trip we would ever take together, and that I owed it to myself to get something from the 6 months of misery that I had been subjected to. Not to mention that it would be nice for them to spend some dough on me for once. I have to admit, though, they really came through. The room was beautiful, complete with a hot tub and a most comfortable king-size bed. We traveled to Laughlin early on a Wednesday morning. The drive was nice, and we didn't argue or fight all the way there, and the thought of getting away for a week was enough to help lift my spirits. When we arrived at the hotel, I was actually excited, but I also had to pee something fierce. So as Tammy went to check us into our room, I went into the casino to use the restroom. On my way out, I decided to try my luck on a dollar slot machine. I put a $20 bill in and started spinning. 5 spins in, I hit. I won $150. I immediately cashed out, stacked the coins on trays, and ran out of the casino back to the car. Kim and Tammy were inside, fuming that it had taken me so long. I apologized to them and told them that they couldn't be mad at me because I had won. And once we were settled in the room, I gave them each $50 of my winnings. And at that moment, I thought it was going to be a great birthday. Later that afternoon, we went out for dinner and a stroll along the boardwalk. We had a wonderful time sightseeing and being silly, just having fun. I wish that day could have repeated itself for the remainder of the trip. What happened next was classic. Kim and Tammy spent the rest of the week in bed together sleeping. I was left to find my own excitement in Laughlin. I roamed the streets, cruised the casinos, and lost my luck as well as most of my paycheck. I was absolutely miserable. It turned out to be the worst birthday of my life. Chapter 11, Going Home. After the Laughlin fiasco, I was more depressed than ever. I cried myself to sleep nightly. I constantly asked myself, what was I doing? Why was I still there? I knew I was playing the fool. I knew that I was allowing myself to be treated like shit. The novelty of the threesome was long gone. I was more than ready to leave. I was through with them both. 6 months was more than enough to satisfy Tammy's sense of what had been considered making it. Anyway, what did I care? What did I care anyway? I wanted to be a normal person again. I wanted to be with someone, anyone who wanted to be with me and me alone. I needed stability. I needed to feel loved. I wanted to refine myself again. I find that when you cry loud enough and long enough, God hears you and sends help for you in strange ways. My help came in the form of a wonderful person named Kia. I was feeling sorry for myself, and along came this woman who in some way needed me, not sexually, but as a friend. And as she and I became closer friends, I saw firsthand what she was going through in her life. And even though she was afraid to take those first steps into freedom and independence, she was doing it for herself and by herself. Watching her deal with the demons that she was faced with forced me to step outside of the box I was hiding under and reevaluate my life. She showed me that I was the one holding myself back. She helped me find my strength, my voice, but mostly my backbone. Exactly 3 weeks after my birthday, I woke up with my mind made up, my new backbone in place, and a sense of self-worth. I told Tammy, who was laying in bed with me, that I was leaving her. I told her I could not live this way anymore, that I was not happy, and the relationship was not healthy for me or my child, and that I was not sorry. I then went to the cafe and told Kim the same thing. I was empowered. I had to make my stand. No longer was I to be the cute piece of furniture draped around the two of them. I was free. I was free. I was free. Kim cried and Tammy threw a fit. She screamed that I was tearing the group apart, that I was the bad one, the one who didn't want it to work. She said that I was going to embarrass her by leaving, and that it was all my fault because I didn't want to try. And she was right. Thank God, it was the first true fact that she has stated. I didn't want to try. I moved all of my things back to my house that afternoon. Kim even helped me pack. And that was the saddest part of all. I knew that I loved her more than anything, but I also knew that she loved Tammy more than she loved me. Chapter 12. It has been exactly 1 year from the beginning of this story to end. I am not currently seeing anyone in particular, but I am surviving. I see Kim and Tammy occasionally as they drive by going en route or to the cafe, but they don't speak to me. They won't even look at me. But I can see them. I see their faces. They don't smile. There's no glow around them. I wonder sometimes, do they think about me? Do they miss me? I wonder what they talk about. Do they reminisce about us? I wonder, but I think I already know. I have become one of those dirty little secrets that no one discusses anymore. An urban legend of sorts, heard about only in whispers. But you know, I think I'm all right with that. Do I still miss Kim? I do. I do still miss Kim, and I probably always will love her in some way. She was my angel, my starfish. And I suppose I'll miss Tammy in some ways as well. I have learned a lot from this experience. A lot about human nature and about myself. Where will I go from here? Well, I don't really know. Will I ever go back with them? With Kim? Probably. That woman makes me do crazy things. Will I ever have a threesome again? Yes, but only if it's in an extra value meal from Kentucky Fried Chicken. Thank y'all for listening to this story. The end. This is my intellectual property, all rights reserved. This is a short story written by Tanya Stingley. written September 29th, 2003. All rights reserved. Thank you.